Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Rachel Bussman, and I'm a clinical psychologist at the Child Mind Institute. We are a national nonprofit that supports children and families with gold standard mental health care, advice, and resources, all available and online at childmind.org/coronavirus. You can learn more about the resources we have available for families. We also have recordings of all the Facebook Lives so that if you want to watch it later, you can. And if you want to start typing in your questions, you definitely can. We're talking today about self-care. So I'll be answering some of your questions that you can type in live now. And you also have sent some questions ahead of time, which is so helpful to us as we get started this afternoon. I'll start with is a broad explanation of what we mean by self-care. I know for me, sometimes I think about the idea of self-care as some kind of luxurious spa day or just some kind of afternoon where I can just binge watch my favorite show. And I can assure you that during this coronavirus crisis that we're dealing with, that's not really what we're talking about. So certainly if you have an opportunity to have a spa day at home or binge watch a show, that's great. That's really helpful to recharge your batteries, but most of us don't have that luxury right now. And so what we really mean by self-care is having time not only at the end of the day or on a weekend that involves recharging your batteries, renourishing your spirit, your mind, and your body. And it's something that we want to do throughout the day and at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day or on a weekend. So I want to just dispel any myths around the idea of a spa day or luxury and self-care. Some of the things that we talk about when we're referencing self-care and we're talking about things you do throughout the day might not actually seem all that either outside of common sense, or they might not seem like things that we need to call attention to, but they are. So for example, drinking water. I've talked a lot about this on Facebook Lives, and today or yesterday, I kind of moved to a new level. I put a picture of, this is actually some herbal iced tea. And so it's making it a little bit easier for me to actually refill my glass. I'm happy to say I've drank about 3 glasses today, which is an improvement. So some of the things could just be hydrating, which doesn't seem like anything all that exciting, and it's not, but really important for those moments when we're trying to stay hydrated or stay the course of long periods of time on a computer or during doing work or homeschooling activities. Other things that you can do throughout the day are also small things like stretching your hands for those of us who might be typing a lot. My husband said that he's been leaning on one side and he's starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable. So we've talked about doing some shoulder rolls, even just moving around your apartment. If you don't have a large space, just moving around in some circles. I actually saw a really interesting link. I don't remember exactly where it was, but it was for runners and doing a virtual run and even counting steps just in place or in your kitchen. So it is possible to get movement in a small space. So that's just the first thing, is just laying the foundation for what self-care is. One of the questions that came in, and again, if you're just joining us, you can absolutely type in your questions now. We're so happy to have them. With 2 kids at home and with myself and my partner working full time, I just feel like I have no time for myself and I'm burning out. What do you suggest? So this is a really good question. And I think the term burning out is really important, because when we give and give and give, we run the risk of having something happen called burning out, so that we just, we don't have just an endless supply of resources. We don't have an endless supply of energy. So we have to be able to recharge those energy sources. However, when you have multiple children at home and you have a partner and you're both having competing demands from work, it is really hard to find time. And then obviously it leads to feeling that you're burning out. And so one of the suggestions I actually have is to manage expectations. So I don't know, I can just speak for myself that when I see a list of the things I have to do that day, maybe minutes, or I'll get to stretching later. But I think one of the things to do when we're feeling that we're burning out and we know that we have a lot of demands of work and children is to really look for and carve out just 5 or 10 minutes to take. And that sometimes setting that expectation or 5 or 10 minutes can be the first step, right? So I think that Dr. Dave Anderson talked about coronavirus and perfection not really going hand in hand too well, or I could be paraphrasing, but the idea that, perfection at this time is really not possible, right? So I actually didn't set the expectation to drink the entire pitcher of water or tea that I have. It's really just to drink maybe 2 glasses. So that setting that smaller goal might lead to the larger goal. So maybe tomorrow I'll drink 4 glasses, but for now I had wanted to drink more, and the first step was putting a glass into my home office, putting a pitcher to refill in my home office. So I think with 2 parents that are working at home and with multiple children and feeling out of time, one could just be scheduling 10 minutes. Another could be communicating with your partner around times on and times off, so that if you're doing some shift work with your partner, that during a specific period of time you might not be working, but that's actually going to be your time to shower, or that's actually going to be your time to actually take a walk, or things like that. So it's important to really communicate about those things. This is another really great question that's coming in, that is, exercise is crucial to my mental health, but I just can't find the space physically or mentally to do it. So I've lost an important part of my routine and I don't know how to get it back. So any suggestions would be helpful. So I will say also that this is just an amazing question. So for many people, exercise is not just for the body, but for the mind, right? Many people are committed and very dedicated to their exercise regimen. And so not being able to go for a run, or not being able to cycle with your friends, or not being able to do yoga is not only doing a disservice to your body, but it just feels bad in terms of a routine, or just not being able to stay committed to the things you wanted. So what I would say is, in terms of getting it back, I would, again, really start small. So I can, again, only speak for myself or people that I've talked to, that maybe you are used to, for example, running every day for an hour. So trying to set that expectation now would be both not very, very truthful, because that's just not likely right now. And it might lead to a lot of disappointment, because if your expectation is I do an hour every day, or even 30 minutes every day, and you just can't do that now, then there's a very high likelihood that you won't do anything, because it just feels really demoralizing or maybe disheartening. One thing you could just do is set a more realistic expectation. So, for example, I was looking before this Facebook Live that there are a lot of fitness apps, fitness programs that are not free, but offering some free services right now. So, for example, Peloton being one of them, they have an app that goes along with some of their machinery, and they're offering, I believe, 90 days free, which means you can stream 10-minute abs, a 10-minute bike, a 10-minute walk, right? And so you don't have to start at, let's say, a 45-minute expectation, because really 10 minutes is better than no minutes. So one of the things I would say for those who aren't able to get back to what you've done, I would start with something small. I would also say that oftentimes our motivation, we expect ourselves to feel motivated and then act. And I would say that, at least for me yesterday, I did not really want to do my exercise, but I knew that it would be good for me. So I actually, as I was walking to my bedroom to put my sneakers on, I was still thinking, I don't really feel like doing this right now. But I did. I put my sneakers on. I set my expectation for 20 minutes, even though would I have liked to do 30? Yes. I would like to do 45. I didn't have time to do that. But I think that getting in the mindset of I might have to act, kind of fake it before I feel it. So I might have to actually do it, and I might not enjoy it the whole time. But I've made a commitment to, let's say, do something that involves movement 3 times a week for 10 minutes, right? And what that looks like can be really different. Again, I saw Peloton. I know that Pop Sugar Fitness does a lot of really great videos that can be, some of them are 45 minutes, some of them are 10 minutes, some of them are 15 minutes, and they can involve anything really, from yoga, Pilates, Zumba, dance, hip hop, all these kinds of things. So there's something really for everyone. I would also say, again, just sort of the idea of managing expectations and really being forgiving, right? So maybe you have the expectation or you've set a new goal to exercise or move your body 3 times a week for 10, 15 minutes. And one particular day you just don't do it. And I think that's just life. And so we say, you know what? Would I have liked? So there's a term we talk about, like you could say that I should have done this, I should have done that. And we sometimes say don't should on yourself, meaning we just, that's not going to be all that helpful. So would I have liked to do this? Yes, I would. And what can I do tomorrow to make it more likely, to reduce a barrier? So for me, going back to my water, one barrier is having to go over and fill the cup. So by putting a pitcher on my table, I'm at least reducing that as a barrier. Additionally, one really great question, and again, if you're just joining us now, please do feel free to send in coming in now, which is my husband thinks self-care is something for other people, but he really needs some. How do I help him see it's important? So I love this question. And of course, we could fill in the blank for my blank thinks self-care is something for other people, right? We could say my sister, my husband, my partner, my son, my elderly parent, right? And so you do a couple of things. One is, so you could probably tell your partner or your husband, you need to do this. Often conversations don't go super far by starting with, you really need to do this. Even if you really know that that's helpful. So you might start with what your concern is. You might say is now really for a few minutes, let's find a time to do that. And then you could lead with yourself, right? So leaning into a conversation by saying, I don't know about you, but I've noticed that it's really important for me to eat throughout the day or exercise a couple of times a week. I'm worried about you. What do you think? Do you think this is important, right? So one idea would be to give observations. Like I've noticed that when you take a and rather than saying like, you should do this. Another thing you might do is I, again, looked for a few things before the Facebook, and you could go to maybe like Men's Health or other, you could look up science of exercise or wellness for men. And you could always rely on some reputable sources to give some strategies specifically geared toward a different population, right? So maybe you're a wife or a mother, you think it's important for your husband to get some self-care, but maybe reading an article about why that's important for men could be really important. So you could look into. Also, again, it's always helpful to come to a conversation by offering a solution. So rather than saying this is just something you should do, you might say, I'm wondering if maybe if we take a walk together or we do a puzzle together, or if I get a movie, would you watch it with me? So inviting someone to do something with you might have a little bit more sort of bandwidth and might go far. So really good question. Another question that we got was, my self-care really is centered around eating right now. It's not healthy, but baking and cooking are really calming, and I'm not sure what else to do. Any suggestions for healthy, active self-care ideas? So I also think this is another really great question. Look, we all get comfort from food. In fact, there's something called comfort food. So it's true that food is comfort. And when we don't have a lot of things to do, going to an activity that we are good at, like baking or cooking, is completely understandable. So I think my advice would be to find balance. So I wouldn't say no baking or no cooking or no eating or indulging, because I think that's probably not a very good solution in terms of moving to balance or setting realistic expectations. On the other hand, you could engage your family in finding healthy recipes that are really delicious to make, right? So yes, bake on that particular day, but find some recipes that are also nourishing, right? Or find desserts that involve some fruit or some protein, and not just, look, I would love nothing more than to eat ice cream every day and then know that that's not going to make me feel really good. Again, I think the idea of balancing, we're eating, but we're not really moving very much, right? My husband and I have commented that our Fitbits are getting no steps, and mine is getting very few steps because for some reason my Fitbit magnet interacts with my computer, so I can't even wear it when I'm working. But really trying to figure out how to get some steps in, even if you do a dance party with your kids or just do like some jumping jacks or push-ups or sit-ups. So trying to really balance that. And again, just being outside, maybe with your kids, taking a walk, chasing bubbles, as the weather gets nicer, maybe using a hose and a sprinkler outside. Like those are all things that involve moving and balancing things with health. Another question was, can you recommend some things that I can do to sort of take a field trip or go do something fun that doesn't involve watching a movie? So I would say that, I'm going to stop myself in the middle because I'm seeing an amazing question come in. So one thing is someone is saying, I find watching Netflix very relaxing. How to not be hard on yourself? Well, first, names it, but you should be not too hard on yourself. If Netflix is exciting, I mean, who doesn't love Netflix? I love it. So you shouldn't be too hard on yourself. And in fact, you might want to schedule some Netflix time. I like to say that my mom has gotten her, her honorary PhD in binge watching television. She really has. And it's fine to watch TV. In fact, if it's an escape and a distraction and it's not interfering in the other roles in your life, it's fine. And you can absolutely do it. I would just say, if you know that you're someone who could get lost in that, try to set a goal of just carving out 15 minutes of something else. So what I was going to say is there are all these free, take a virtual field trip to a museum, visit the Louvre. My son has really been enjoying going to zoos and aquariums and watching the live cams on all the animals because he's really into red pandas. So we watched a red panda get fed the other day. And so really, it's very important to just find a few things that are helpful, right? And so Netflix is great. Someone else just posted that Disney Channel has some awesome documentaries and movies. Absolutely, right? I will say in our family, we've started to watch this show called The Amazing Race, which I never watched before. Apparently, it's had like 30-something seasons. But we're watching it because really we don't usually watch TV in the evening with our son, but we have a lot of time on our hands. And when he's finished school for the day, we are. And we're actually watching an episode together. We root for a team that we like. We've actually had some interesting conversations where some team members are poor sports and they use not bad language, but just really don't approach the tasks in a great way. And of course, spoken like a psychologist who's a mom. We talk about like, you know what, like that's not really a nice way to be with your partner who's trying to help you out. So I love the idea of documentaries, baking shows, like all those things. I think just getting to screen time. I think the thing we want to remember with screen time is it's one thing to just turn on a screen for yourself and numb out or put the television on for your children. And even still, that's fine, but do it with intention. So you're saying, yeah, I'm going to watch a show. And to be honest, we've watched more than one Amazing Race in one night, but I'm doing it with some intentionality and saying, this is fun, this is distracting, and I'm still going to like get back to life in a little bit, right? I think puzzle sales have gone up by several 100%. I'll admit, I keep wanting to like puzzles. It's just not my thing. So you know what? I'm not going to do a puzzle. I'm probably not going to do a puzzle for any time soon, but that's really fine, right? So if your thing is cooking, if your thing is crafts, if your thing is giving back and you want to make face masks, awesome, right? Find something and then open your boundary a little bit and say, what can I do for 15 minutes this week that I didn't do last week? So I'm just going to answer one more question. I love people's comments. I think another thing that folks can think about is just crafts, right? So art, crafts, some people are really good at like knitting or sewing. And I think this is where things like YouTube or Instagram can be great, right? Like lots of videos on how to do things. And, you can get into, you could do science experiments or crafts or, arts and crafts or some kind of story writing. And again, all these things can be creative and not necessarily using a screen, but also you might get great ideas from posts or listservs where people are just sharing ideas. For me, my escape is books. So I've been trying to read a lot. And I definitely think that reaching out to friends and saying, let's have a virtual book club is a great idea, right? Like, it's true that a lot of times you have a book club and you don't really talk about the books, because really, if we think about it, it's more about the socialization. So yes, it's great to talk about a book, but it's also great to just hang out with friends, right? I love this. Someone's commenting, we pair documentaries like with activities, like we watched The Elephant and then drew elephants. I think that's awesome, right? Another thing that I saw is Mo Willems, who's an artist who writes children's books, the Piggy and Gerald books, is doing some doodling every day, like lunchtime doodles. So you could read a big Piggy and Gerald book and then do his lunchtime doodle, right? So I hated puzzles before the lockdown, and now I love them. So I know this person. I'm going to say thank you for reminding us that you might change your mind if you're open to it. So I guess I could probably try a puzzle, and maybe I will find it's my new favorite thing. So thanks for the reminder that we can change our minds. I just want to thank you all for today. I really have appreciated your questions. We are here for you every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are recording these so that you can view them later or share them. The Childline Institute is here with the mental health and parenting needs of this coronavirus crisis wherever you are. Our resources are on childline.org/coronavirus. We have telehealth options, resources, parenting tips, and just a whole host of information that you can share. Thank you so much for joining us, and please have a good day.